study session. Apparently the people outside are also really excited with their vroom vroom cars. Um, so if you are new here, um, our study session is always where aspiring Chemites, beginner Chemites, I was going to say inducted, that's not the word I'm looking for. Initiated Chemites, basically it's just a space for us to come together, study, talk about, the legacy and so on and so forth together. So let's get started. So this week, I just want to make sure in general that, just so there are no interruptions, which I'm like, I already know an alarm's going to go off. So I'm pre-apologizing now. But anywho, let's pick up. So we have been reading the book Ancient Egypt and Black Africa by Theophile Obenga. And so far, what we have read, we have gone through the introduction, or at least most of the introduction. We have gone through the first chapter, where essentially Obenga is giving us the overview for African philosophy, Kemetic philosophy, and just kind of laying down his groundwork. So today we're going to start on chapter 2. And so chapter 2 is the African origin of philosophy. So that's what this chapter is all about. So etymology of the word philosophy. So etymology is a science that studies the origin of words. What then is the origin of the word philosophy? It is very possible that the signification to which the word philosophy is attached has the same origin as the word itself. It is therefore necessary to answer this question accurately. MenyetAnkhEnMaat. In the Western world, the USA included, the conventional teaching of philosophy has this table of commandments. I think that's an interesting choice of words. Table of commandments, not like table of contents, but commandments. So 1, philosophy is of Greek essence. Ooh, I already see where he's going with this. Archaic Greece is therefore designated by Western nations as the birthplace of philosophy. The spoken word in Greek is philosophy. The Greek language is the philosophical language par excellence. Or if I want to try to be fancy, par excellence. But you didn't hear that. I didn't do that. 2, philosophy has nourished science. It preceded the sciences. So science, he's defining as physics, chemistry, mathematics, political science, aesthetics, logic, biology, sociology, etc. And it was born all from philosophy. I'm like, I can't wait to turn the page to see, like, I think I know where you're going with this, sir. I see the setup here, the alley-oop. I don't even know sports, but I'm like, that sounds like a sports reference of some sort. Philosophy is one of the privileged fields in which historical or Western societies elaborate their destiny and their future. I'm like, I feel like that's the part where they shoot and we're watching it go in the air. So 4, consequently, anywhere else in the world, in pre-Columbian America, Black Africa, I hate the fact, although I understand when this was written and I understand why he uses the name Black Africa, but in 2021, I'm like, cringe, but I get it. Oceania, Asia, India, China, etc. One will find thoughts, religions, cosmogonies, but never real philosophical systems. The thought or spirit of India, Chinese thought, the great Oriental, oof, that's also, oh. I'm like, oh my gosh, all this language. Like, oh my gosh, no. So, the great Oriental monotheistic religions, the Black African myths, the pre-Columbian cosmogonies, etc. So, only the Greeks founded universal reason, which is philosophy with science in discovering rational existence, in inventing humanism, in constantly extending their analysis of the world. I'm like, we still waiting for it. It's in the air. It's still in the air. Okay, let's see if he does that. See, now this is where the sports references get lost, and y'all just gonna laugh at me like, she don't know what she talking about. I don't. I admit it now. I don't know nothing about sports. But like, so is it gonna be a slam dunk? Are they gonna do that? So let's see. These five dogmas or academic commandments have led to the African intellectual elite formed in Europe and the United States to anxiously ask themselves this serious question. Can one speak of African philosophy without misusing the term? The answer is obviously in the main negative until now. I'm like, was that the slam dunk? Was that the, like, y'all said all of this, but ha, psych, you wrong. Um, so, and a term was promptly invented for Black Africa. I'm like, ooh, cringe again. Ethnophilosophy. That is to say, something that resembles Greek philosophy, but cannot be philosophy, for objectively, philosophy can only be of Greek origin. So, yeah, I just really honestly, like, and this is just my own, and that's the end of that specific paragraph, so that's why I'm like interjecting here, but it's just like, that is why I low-key have like a love-hate relationship with just the dated, not just the dated language, but then at the same time, like, people nowadays, like, we learn stuff from TikTok, we learn stuff from social media, so it's just like, oh man, like, yeah, that's dope, but we knew that already, or, oh, that's dope, but why are you saying it like that? Or, like, I feel like back in the day that was like a slam dunk, and everybody, like, that was when Michael Jordan busted the glass and everybody's like, ah, like, remember when that used to be a really big thing? I'm dating myself right now. But like, that was a big deal. Like, people tried to break the glass and then they just started getting in trouble and all that other stuff. But this whole idea of like, just in general, how people are just like, they all got it from us. It's like, okay, now that was big, but now in 2021, it's like, all right, yeah, they got it from us. We, like, that's common knowledge. So I'm just like, it feels like a wow wow kind of a intellectual wimp kind of a thing. But I digress. That is totally just Menyet's personal opinion. Feel free to disagree. It's okay. All right, so let's move on. Isn't it then presumptuous, indeed senseless? Ooh, that was a dagger. To talk of the African origin of philosophy. How can Africa be designated objectively as the birthplace of Greek philosophy and thus of that of the West, from Thales to, okay, now he doing funny stuff. Now he want to do the German, and I'm like, Nietzsche. I don't even know how to try to say that. Nietzsche. I don't even know how to say that. So something. And Heidegger, including Plato, Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas, Descartes, Kant, and Hegel. I'm like, see, I got the rest of them, but that first one, that's how I'm going to say it every single time. I need to have fun with it. This is a key question which can only be I was like, am I saying that right? Explicated in the light of linguistic facts and historical testimonies. Verifiable by any competent researcher. The compound word philosophy does not have an etymology, neither in Indo-European nor Greek. This is obvious in the light of etymological. Wait, nope, I'm gonna get it. Bear with me. Etymological. See, you say it slower and then you get it. Now, don't ask me to say it fast though. Science. We have philos, adjective, which means love, cherished, or dear, in the passive, and loving or benevolent in the active, less common use. The substantive philo of this what is going on? Y'all, it's Mercury retrograde. I'm blaming all of that on Mercury retrograde. The substantive philos means friend. Adjective or substantive. What is going on with me? It's like literally just these two words like are messing me up. Substantive. The etymology of the word philos is, and please judge me because I'm judging me for that one. There is nothing comparable to phil or philo in other Indo-European languages. In other words, philos cannot be explained in Greek, and it is not a word of Greek origin. I'm like, ooh, that's page 54. So I think that's an interesting one to like look into, like, because again, I'm new to the whole language and philology and all of that other stuff. So, but I think that would be worthy of looking into because, to be fair, some of our scholars in the Afrocentric realm, when it comes to writings of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they took a little creative liberties and they made certain connections that didn't need to be connected, and weren't quite right. So, because this was written in 1992, that is the no hate at all. But, maybe it's something we need to follow up on, just to be sure. Because Lord knows you don't want to be out and outside, be thinking you all intellectual, and then somebody be like, but nah. So, here we go. All right, so let us now go to the second element of the compound word of philosophy. We have sophos, who knows, who dominates an art or a technique, and also learned or learned and intelligent. The derivative Sophia, iconic Sophie, S-O-P-H, accented I and E, the first example of which can be found in Homer or the Iliad. And then he says, I don't know if this is chapter 15 or page 15, one or the other. So it's 15 and 412, meaning skill at doing, Sophia, the skill at doing, can refer to a poet or a scientist, to practical soundness and wisdom in general. So we have the following progressive compound of dependence. Philo, who loves, to sophon. I'm totally reading that as though it was French. I don't know why Greek would sound like French. They don't sound anything alike, but I did that. Knowledge and wisdom, hence philosophia, liking for knowledge or wisdom. Philosophia can be applied to the liking of research, of knowledge, of eloquence. The origins of the history of the words sophos, Sophia, show how the Greeks went from practical knowledge to general philosophical knowledge. In modern Greek, we have sophos, scientist, scholar, and Sophia, knowledge and wisdom. Yet the word sophos does not have an etymology, neither in Indo-European or in Greek. No specialist could demonstrate otherwise. So again, when he's saying these like wide, generalized statements, those are the ones that I'm just like, oh, word, let me write that down. Yeah, we got to find that out. So the word philosophy does not have an etymology in Greek for either part, philo or sophos. This Greek word is not of Greek origin. I feel like he's just like, what? Is that horse dead? Let me stab it a little more. Like, okay, sir, you got it. It's not Greek. Now I know he's trying to do that alley-oop again, where he's just like, ta-da! It's really African, psych. We made it first. It's like, you spent 3 whole pages for that wind up. But who am I? Who am I? Do I have a published book? No. Do I have? I'm like, I was like, what are all of the letters on his name? I'm like, I know he got a bunch of degrees that I don't have. So who am I? Other than a Menyet. But whatever. It's cool. All right. All these philological and etymological observations are rigorously exact. The words sophos has no etymology in Greek. The etymology of philos is equally unknown in Greek. How can philosophy be of Greek essence, or origin if the word philosophy itself is not a Greek word. Again, all of that. Oh, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of skimmed ahead. I see where you're going. I bet you didn't know. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised now. The Greek language of Indo-European origin has borrowed massively from other languages, notably from Semitic and Kemetic languages. Wow, didn't see that coming. No way. For shock. I'm being such a jerk right now. Don't mind me. I'm just being overly sarcastic. So this is the case, for instance, of the word we are interested in, sophos. Who knows? Who masters an art or a technique, learned, intelligent. Tosophan. Again, I'm back to reading stuff like I'm reading French. Knowledge or wisdom. Sophia, skill at doing. Practical soundness and wisdom in general. All right, so I'm trying to like change words in my brain, and I'm like, oh wait, no, there's a whole lot of vowels right there. A Kemetic etymology, no, a Kemetic etymology for sophos. See, look, there I go. Okay, go me. Sophon, Sophia, Sophie is not so unbelievable if we take into account the history of philosophy, which the Greeks received from the Kemetyw. In fact, Isocrates, 436 to 338 BCE, designated Kemet as the cradle of medicine for the well-being of the body, and of philosophy for the well-being of the soul. For the souls, they, the Kemetic priests, revealed the practice of philosophy, which can at the same time set down rules, look for the nature of things. So from Kemet, philosophy reached Greece through Greek students of Kemetic priests. Among these Greek students, Isocrates expressly named Pythagoras of Samos, Greek philosopher and mathematician of the 6th century BCE. I'm not gonna lie. And if you watch the first time, when we first started reading this book, like, I get the point, but do I really need to know all of the dirty details of all the different Greeks? Like, no. Do I really care? No. Is it like a nice, cool footnote to know? Yeah, okay. Or if it's your thing, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to down you, but I'm starting to get bored. I'm starting to get bored reading all these Greek people. I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there. So, but I'll keep going until I can't take it no more, and then I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna skip some of these pages. I already see it because I fake skipped the page, and he's still going on about Greek folk. But I get it. I get it. Yeah. So it reached them. Then he starts to talk about Aristotle from 384 to 322 BCE. Kemet is the cradle of mathematics, so mathematical arts were first formed and constituted only in Kemet. This is what I'm talking about. Look how long, and don't forgive my nails because I done took my nails off, but look how long that paragraph is compared to what I just read. Like, I'm like, I just noticed I got something on my finger. Thank you for saying it's green, because it's supposed to be green, but then the dye decided, I don't know if I want to be green or blue. So thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, but that's why I'm like kind of getting, I don't want to say annoyed, but just a little like, ugh, with, because it just be really, really long sentences for like 4 words. Anyways, for the Greeks of antiquity, the mathematical arts included the following fields: geometry, the science of numbers or arithmetic, and astronomy. The Greeks only started. Can I read? Oh, it's definitely green. Okay. I'm like, you see all that conditioner in there? It ain't gonna move. All right, let me. Woosah. Study. Okay. So the Greeks only started to possess this scientific knowledge in the days of Thales. To be precise, Thales, the Greek mathematician and philosopher, founder of the first Greek philosophical school at Miletus in Ionian city of Asia Minor. See, this is what I'm talking about. I don't need that much detail. I don't care. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, so saying all, it was the first one to be called the wise in the time of Damasus was Archon of Athens in 582 BCE. He was the first to be called wise. All right, I've hit my limit. So I'm going to just skim, summarize, and keep it pushing. Because, yeah, look, he got the whole full-blown Greek. What I need that for? If you want it, it's on page 56 and 57. That I'm gonna just leave it like that. So if you want to read all the Greek, page 56 and 57, go for it. So essentially, this guy from this Thales, he founded wisdom in the cultural and scientific sense when, aka, he the dude who brought it from Kemet over to Europe, and he was taught there. We definitely heard that like 4 pages of that over and over again. For this other guy, Isocrates, Kemet was also the cradle of philosophy because he learned math there, and he's listing all the different kinds of math this guy learned. Kemet taught all the sciences, all of the techniques, all the arts to the Greeks, starting with the first among them, Thales, which legit, you spent a whole paragraph already saying that. Why are you saying that again? But whatever. We respect the elders. Maybe we just don't necessarily like their writing styles. But you know, whatever. Personal, 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 personal. So we therefore have Seba, to instruct or educate to learn, in Pharaonic Egyptian, in Rani Kemet or Seshmedu Necher. So in the written language, in the spoken language, we got the word Seba. We can find it in the pyramid texts. We also have derivative words, sebaut, so plural, teaching or teachers, in Sahidic or Baharic, so regional dialects of Coptic. So it says SB and then it has the O with the line over it, which has the meaning of teaching, education, or intelligence. In Coptic still, we have Sebe, so it's the E with the curve over it. And then the same thing with the E and the straight line over it, which means wise, intelligent, sensible, or learned. So I'm not gonna lie, and I know y'all about to get mad at me, and it's okay. It's quite all right. But I just feel like I'm gonna touch on the topic, but this is already a topic that I intended on making. Not making. I already wrote the script and got my research together. I just need to film the video and edit it for YouTube. But this whole thing of relating like Kemet and talking about Kemet and then looking at the Coptic to kind of like justify and solidify it, which I get it. I make that connection. Yes, I'm a teacher in the school too, so I just I can't get enough, I guess. So when he keeps doing this, and a lot of people do this too, and I know they do that in like Egyptology and stuff, but if you're listening or have heard anything from like different Christian apologists, the first thing they do, like, or not first thing, because this is just on the list of things, when it comes to attacking the Kemetic community, which is just dumb unto itself. But like I said, I'm doing a whole video on that. But they go through this whole thing of Coptic, and they're saying, oh, well, look, even the ancient Kemetyw, like they converted over to Christianity and this, that, and the third. So it's kind of like, okay, how do we handle that argument? Because like, okay, I get it. Like when they're trying to say like spiritual, they're basically saying the ancient practices are passe because the Kemetic people themselves uh, converted to Christianity. Therefore, people who are following, like, this is like how they're building their argument. And it's just kind of like, it's very detrimental because it's not an apples to apples thing. And then, the different groups of people who converted to Coptic and this, that, and third. So it's just modern Kemetyw. I just really wonder how much, like, unless we're literally just talking about this is how you pronounce language, this is how this, that, and the third. But this conversation of the Coptic and, oh, we could still see it and it's still a living thing and blah, blah, blah. Like, because I have heard people say that. I wonder, again, as modern practitioners, like, do we want to do that, or is that shooting ourselves in the foot? Because, people, that it does make sense, that argument, but it, again, if you know more of the history and like why those people converted and, what were the conditions and the historical context and all this other stuff. But, the apologists are just banking on the fact that people are ignorant and they don't know, or they just don't care to research it or anything like that. So, that's my 2 cents on that. So it's just the fact that he kept kind of bringing up, oh, and in Coptic it's this, and in Coptic it's that, and it's like, that's cool, but maybe for 1992 that's great, but should we continue doing that? Like, I just think there's a lot of things, for Kemetic practitioners that we need to start having discussions on, like, okay, that's cool, that's what our elders taught us, I get it, but like, we need to pivot because it's 2021, it's not 1992 anymore. Like, 1992, they were talking to their 1992 audience. Can we still get stuff out of it? Absolutely. But is there some of it that we just need to leave in 1992? Yeah, there is too. Like using the word Oriental. Like, we know in 2021 we don't really use that terminology anymore. And in Black Africa, like, yeah, I get it, but not anymore. So preschool or high school, I teach high school. I'm a high school social studies teacher. I'm not sure, I think I've said that before, I haven't said it today, but yeah, that's what I do. That's my day job. Wait, how they be doing it on TikTok? Wait, no, they'd be like, all right, let me be quiet. I'm gonna continue. All right, so Coptic, blobbity blobbity doo. And essentially he's making comparisons of the language of Seshmedu Netcher, the Demotic, and the Coptic of various Neteru. So he's talking about the word Seba, then he's talking about Nebehet, and then he's talking about, that's it. Okay, then he goes on, it's treated like this, and he's talking about more Demotic. So he's basically just giving the etymology and the different words, and he's saying, like, this is how you know the different words, and blah, 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 blah. Huh? What about the gay? I don't understand. I really don't understand. What do I think about that being in the Roman day? What do I think about Roman people being gay? I don't know what there is to think about it. Like, what, can you rephrase the question? I don't quite understand. Or I don't understand the kind of answer you're looking for. Let me rephrase that like that. So blah 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 blah. So then he starts going into the word sword. Then he goes into the word incense, the word bushel. So he's really, this is a whole bunch of, what it is he's doing. He's just making these language comparisons. That's pretty much what that is. So definition of sage of the philosopher in Kemet 2,000 years before the birth of the first Greek philosopher. So the philosopher is a friend of wisdom. The result of this is a conception of the problems of life of the world. Often the conduct of the philosopher is reflective and moderate, prudent, circumspect, and reserved. He acts with wisdom. The Entef, or the Mentuhotep, kings from the 11th dynasty from 2052 BCE, A decisive text from one of the Antefs clearly defines the sage, the philosopher, according to the canons of the ancient Kemetyw. Here is the text, translated by the German Egyptologist Helmut Helmut Brunner. I feel like I should put on a really, really horrible German accent to say that. It sounds horrible in my head, so I'm not going to do that out loud, but it sounded really bad. So I see you just popped up, but I'm like, let me just finish reading this paragraph and then I'll read what you were saying. Um, whose heart is informed about these things, which would otherwise be ignored, the one who is clear sighted when he is deep into a problem, the one who is moderate in his actions, who penetrates ancient writings, who is sensible enough to unravel complications, who is really wise, who instructed his own heart, who stays awake at night as he looks for the night paths, to the right paths, who surpass what he accomplished yesterday, who is wiser than a sage, who brought himself to wisdom, who asks for advice and sees to it that he is asked for advice. So that's from the inscription of an Atef, 12th dynasty, Middle Kingdom, 11th and 12th dynasties from 2052 to 1778 BCE. All right, so we're in the middle of page 58. So the question is, so I'll read the question. So the question says, yes, when you're in New York, all these flags, what would you tell your kids if they asked you about being gay? So if you're just, I guess, with a quick wire, and you're just asking like my personal opinion as a Kemetic person in 2021, how I would deal with that contemporary issue. Am I understanding that correctly? I'm like waiting, pins and needles. I want to make sure I'm right before I just start talking and then it'd be like, that's not what I meant. So I always try to make sure I'm clear first. I'm like, so yes? Is that correct? Was that correct? Okay, I'm gonna pretend that the yes came through and that was what was being asked. So let me put this down for 2 seconds. All right. So there are. Let me go back to go forward before I even just straight up answer the question, because I could simply just say yes, no, blah blah blah, and get on a soapbox. But being a Kemetic person, as we just read, it's all about being circumspect. It's all about, analyzing and taking the ancient wisdom and applying it to today. So it's not about anything more than that. So I'll start with that. So if Minyet were to have her own children outside of my two cats, because those are my children and the children at work, um, and my graduated kids, but that's another story. So I'm like, no, I gotta answer the first question first. Hold on. I'm like, put a pin in that one. I'm like telling the kid, put it in the parking lot real quick. Um, so when we read the 42, because the guiding principle for Kemetyw or Kemetic people is the 42. So I think how can I put this? The same way that I would deal with heterosexual people, as in like, mm, letting everything hang out, letting, uh, I am a believer of modesty. I also believe in expressing oneself in the proper time, place, etc., amongst other adults. So, me personally, if I had children and I didn't want them to see something, I wouldn't bring them, around that. But I do understand that you walk down the street and it is like it's on doors, like flags and stuff like that. So, I mean, honestly, kids are smart. Um, they see it all the time, and I would be having that conversation very early as far as this is what we believe as Kemites, this is how we look at the world, blase blase blah. This is the 42, this is, how we keep ourselves, on the straight and narrow, if you will. Um and that's about it. I'm sorry that that's not like a more confrontational answer, but we do in the 42, it does say, like, I will not pollute my body, I will not do this, I will not do that, blah, blah, blah. That's left to interpretation. But at the same time, we're not going to sit here and act as though there was no homosexuality in ancient Kemet. We're not going to sit here and act as though no people in Africa have ever been homosexuals ever in life or anything like that. I think that's just illogical. It just doesn't make sense. So just because it's a reality, I fully believe in, as Kemetic people, especially Kemetic people living in a society that is not built on Ma'at specifically, that we do have to take the time to explain things to our kids and our students and our children and our community, um, so that there is no violence, there is no thing like that. So I understand some homes will want to be like, no, that's horrible. Some people will be more accepting of that. Menyet is not a priestess. Menyet is just a Kemetic person. I'm that's it. I never claim to be the head of anything. I just try to make space for us to have conversations. Um, but I would definitely reflect on the 42 and just talk about keeping one's own purity, keeping one's own body, keeping one own, and again, that's not just about having like relations or having sexual relations with people. That's about eating the right foods. That's about, bathing. That's about a lot of different things. So I feel like, what would I tell them about being gay? Gay is a thing. There are some people who this is that lifestyle, and this, I would explain it to them. And I would say, and this is what we believe as far as, the 42. Because kids are going to do what kids are going to do, whether I want them to or not. So sitting here and being overly preachy, that's not Menyet style. That's not how I that's not how I operate. So I'm sorry that my answer was not more confrontational. I feel like people just want like a definitive yes or a definitive no. Like, I think that's part of the beauty of ancient Kemet, where we had all the different gnomes going up the Hapi River, and excuse me, and as you went up the Hapi River, you had all different kinds of cultures. And part of being Kemetic is appreciating, understanding, as well as live and let live within Ma'at, because we could go to one place and we're all about Amen. We go someplace else, it's all about Min. We go someplace else, it's all about Satesh. Like, but we're all still Kemetic. We're all still appreciating and trying to cultivate Ma'at. So, yeah, I think that would be the long and short of it. Like, I would explain, this is what homosexuality is. When the conversation of, and again, and Mignette's a little different. Like, that whole puritanical shtick that people be on. Like, I really believe a lot of people bring Abrahamic thought and worldview into Kemet, and it's just a little weird, a lot weird. I don't know why we continue to do that. We're like, grr, I hate you, I'm leaving you, leave me alone, I'm not part of you, but I'm gonna take all your philosophy and apply it to this other thing. That's weird. So I believe a lot of people do that over, like, really dramatically, like a complex level. And not complex as in it's hard. I mean, like, you somebody has a complex about it, like they're either very insecure or very and I'm not saying this like about y'all, I'm saying like that some people really 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 go in, like I know some Kemetic people that are just like, it's, oh, I'm gonna be vulgar for like 2 seconds, just 2 seconds, and I really try to never be that way just because I am a teacher, so I don't want to be like, oh, she on the interweb saying these naughty words, like, you know, I try to keep it PG-13, and I that's usually what I be espousing, but you know, disclaimer, some dudes out here really be getting they dick hard off of hating on gay people. Like, it's really weird. It's really weird. Like, they are more concerned with hating on gay people and trying to down them than cultivating my art. Like, something's wrong with that. Something's real wrong with that. I don't understand. Like, back in ancient Kemet, like, you had my art, you had the way of life, you had, this is nature, this is nature, this is the way things operate, and we understand that there are anomalies even in nature. There are some there are some animal species out there that do practice these things, and so we understand it, but okay, maybe we're not going to let everybody do that. Like, look at Happy has the breast of a woman, but but it's supposed to be a masculine energy. We have lunar male deities, we have solar female Netret. So it's like, you know, this ain't nothing new. That's so I hope that's the really 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 long version to answer that question. Just I think it's a very individual thing, but I do also feel like we need to truly examine why we feel these things. And I know some people like, oh, you know, in Africa things weren't that way, in Africa this and yada yada yada, but a lot of people like to generalize, like saying Africa when it's like, but we're Kemites. Like, we focus on, if you want to say Nubian, if you want to say Africametic, if you want to focus in like on, like me specifically, I really try to stick to pre-dynastic and old kingdom, you know, if I can. Um, but you know, like if we want to specify like that, but just to say, oh, well, that's not African, like that is so general. That is a logical fallacy. Like, and if we're Kemites and we're trying to reestablish being general and vague is not it. That ain't it. And just hating on people because I don't know why. Like, you know, like that's an individual conversation for people to have with their kids, but it is not, like, so far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to DM, you know, if y'all got other information that I've never seen before, feel free to share it. The beautiful thing about knowledge is, you know, you can always build on it. You can always change your mind. So if there's something out there that you know about the ancient texts that says like there were laws against homosexuality, I mean literal laws, not implied, like um yeah, then, you know, okay, then we can have a different conversation, and maybe, you know, maybe my answer will be a little different, but um I've to date, I've been practicing, I want to say, what am I at, 12 or 13 years now, and I've not seen any specific, other than some people translate, I will not, um, I will not, what is it? I'm trying to think of like the exact order of how it's said, but I will not commit adultery or commit sins against my own purity, nor lay with others of my same sex. However, when you look at, I'm like, where is it? That one. In the Purdom Haru, if you go in there, um, you know, maybe that's gonna have to be a conversation where we really go through the 42 and I don't want to say tear them apart. I feel like that's not the right way to say it, but like really get into like, okay, this word translates as this. So like yesterday I was looking at so if y'all see on my feed, I have like the word of the day now, and So I was looking for some words of the day, and some dictionaries have some things translated one way. Some like one word that's coming up later, like I want to say in a couple weeks, it says to copulate, and that's it. Now, mind you, that dictionary was also written in 1900s. So it's like, you got all the hangups of yeah, was it written in the night or was it the late 1800s? I have to look again, but it's from the Faulkner Dictionary. And it literally just said to copulate, and that's it. But then when you look at the more updated dictionaries from 2012, they use different words. So it's just like, that as historians, as Kemetyw, we have to understand like the implicit bias, the explicit bias, and so on and so forth, to really try to figure out like, okay, as we're living, what is this going to look like? Because the way Vigus put it in his dictionary, it wasn't just copulate, it was a whole bunch of other words. So that was a really, really long answer. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We ain't even, I've literally put the book down over there. All right. So, I guess if you have a follow-up or something like that, feel free to put it in the chat or something. And, I'll keep running my mouth. So Michael Chahuti says, or Tahuti, because I'm a sucker for Jehuti with the D, Jehuti DJ. So I was considering that book that you're reading. Would you recommend it? You talking about the Theophile Obenga book? Or are you talking about I remember, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, you had asked about like recommended texts, just for clarity's sake. Hey Jerwin. He like, oh, she's shouting me out. Let me stop. Oh, so this one. So honestly, I'm gonna say, so it's a little bit of yes and it's a little bit of nah. So I feel like the beginning of the book is kind of like snorific. But that's only because, again, that's just Menyet's perspective of like, I'm tired of always trying to justify ourselves in Christianity. I'm tired of trying to justify ourselves in Greek and da 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 da. But again, for 1992 audiences, that was like super important. But in 2021, see what I said about kids? That's one of my former students. I'm like, I'm everybody's mama. Anyway, I digress. Serious. So that's why I say the nah part. But when you go into the end, because no lie, when I first bought this book, I'm like, where's the table of contents? So I bought this book specifically for the 4th chapter. So the 4th chapter says male-female relations in ancient Kemet. That's why I bought this book. So all the linguistic stuff and all that comparison stuff, I'm not gonna lie, I would also buy it for, where is it? Page 29 to, where is it? To 36, where he has all the different like books listed. I'm a sucker for book lists. So, I would definitely, I think it's a good kind of like, it's 2021, so you don't have to buy a dictionary, but I still got a dictionary on my bookshelf just in case. I feel like this is one of those kind of books. Like it's definitely for beginners. Or for people, and I'm not gonna lie, and this sounds super regionalist, so forgive me yet, I'm about to be a jerk again for like 2 seconds. But if you're not somebody living on the East or West Coast, like if you're somewhere like in Bible Belt USA, Rust Belt USA, where the only option is people online to build community with, then a book like this might expose you or might expose people to certain things that they didn't learn in school, certain things that the people around them aren't having conversations around. But because I'm from Jersey and I'm, going into the city and I'm used to these ideas, like legit, I heard all that we got it for, like, they all got it from us. Like I learned that back in 2002. You know what I'm saying? So But for other people, and this is just something that I realized, is that um outside of this specific area, like everybody doesn't know that, or everybody isn't exposed to that, or especially if you're around a very large, if not Christian but Abrahamic traditions, there's certain things that you're just not going to be exposed to. So depending on your knowledge, I think it's a good reference book as well as a starting book for people depending on, like, where they're starting from. But like I said, to me, the real good stuff is that last chapter. Like, that's legit why I bought this book. And I decided the reason why I chose this to read for a study session was literally to make myself read the rest of the book. Because I'm like, I know this man is not going to write a whole book and I'm not going to get anything out of it. So, I do think there are parts, like I have to say, I'm like, let me put this back in here, where we read blah, 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 the concepts of philosophy. So I definitely enjoy his citations. I think I said that last week, where like he tells you exactly where you should go in the pyramid texts, or from whatever other wisdom texts and primary sources from ancient Kemet. I think that is like amazing, because I'm not gonna lie, I think tonight is just the night of Menyet being kind of a jerk face. So bear with me. Bear with me. I feel like when I read books that are written by people who are trained in Egyptology, see why I'm like unpopular opinion. Because I know a lot of people are like, Egyptology, that's just a European this and that and whatever, but they got all the primary sources. They've been studying the primary sources since 18 something something something. So if I need to go and get those things, let's go back to source. I don't want a tertiary interpretation of something. Like, that's just, see, I told you those alarms were going off. And I find that a lot of, and again, super unpopular opinion, it's okay, you could be mad at me, we could definitely agree to disagree, but I find that a lot of Afrocentric authors don't cite their sources, don't cite the primary, like, this is where you could find it type of a thing. And sometimes they remix stuff because spirit told them, or because literally of ignorance. And I don't mean that in like oh, you so ignorant, judgy kind of a way. I'm saying, like, before us, the generations before us, like, like my mom's age, my mom is 76, like, she went to school in the 70s. Like, she wasn't allowed, well, not 70s, the late 70s and early 80s, because she finished going just before I was born, or she graduated just before I was born. So this idea of attaining an equal education, when these kinds of books were written by some of our scholars, they weren't allowed to have access to certain things. Like, legit, if you go to the University of Pittsburgh, the University of Oxford, blah, 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 they're not just gonna let in Menyet to come look at this stuff. They're gonna be like, and I mean, duh, racism back in the day. So I get where the ignorance comes from, as well as this idea of, like, spirit, and spirit guides me, and that's cool. But a lot of times people will take what spirit guided them and say it as though it's absolute fact, when it's just their interpretation. And I think that's very dangerous. So that is, again, one reason why I like this book, because Theophile Obenga learned under Cheikh Anta Diop. And anybody, pretty much, I don't want to say everybody, because I don't know everybody, but the people who learned under Cheikh Anta Diop, like, they're trained as Egyptologists, but they're also trained, like, they can read and write Seshmetu Necher, they can read and write in French and German and English. And so all of those sources that Europeans within Egyptology have been like collecting over the years, they can comb through it, interpret it, and have the African understanding and application. So that's why I say like this book is different than I'm about to name drop, don't be mad at me, but something like a Ra'un Nefer Amen. Like, are his books good? Maybe for some people. Like, I've tried to read some of his stuff, but a lot of his, like, he's not really literate in Seshmetu Necher. So it's like, well, how are you gonna make this whole thing? And bruh, you can't read. Like, you saying some words mean stuff that they don't. Like, I would be more inclined to listen to like maybe Muwatta Ashby, but then even still, Muwatta Ashby got his whole, Indus River Valley yoga. We're all, the Afro, what is it? Afro-Asiatic, something. I don't know. You know the term I'm trying to say though. So, I'm not really one for amalgamation. I kind of like, why do I need to go to India if I could just go straight to the pyramid texts? Like, I get if I need help understanding, because clearly I grew up in Jersey. I didn't grow up, there. So there may be some disconnections that, maybe I need to intentionally try to understand. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm going to read the Tao Te Ching and that's going to help me understand the coffin text. Like, you could just read the coffin text. Like, why do you need to go somewhere else to come back? Like, that just don't make no sense. But that's just a Menyet opinion. That is not. It's a very, very unpopular opinion. Like, I have gotten into arguments about that because I get it. People don't want to be disrespectful to the elders, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful because they did what they could for their time period. They got us to this point. They do have some substantive substantive. I'm saying the word right in my head, but when it's coming out, it ain't coming out right. They gave us a strong foundation. That's what I'm trying to say. So they gave us this strong foundation, but maybe they built this foundation in a flood zone. Just saying. Like, it doesn't mean that we can't, like moving, change, growth, all of that is okay. Like, all of those things are cool. So, that was I'm like really long-winded. I'm sorry. I'm like just super, super talky today. So I'm like, let me just see. So yeah, I would if you want a reference book, but if you just straight up want, because I remember we were talking about books the last time. So I guess my question to you would be, I guess, what is your brain or what is your spirit saying like you need or want to learn about? Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't want to disrespect the elders because they, what is it? As the 42 says, I will not lay to waste the plowed lands. Like, they plowed the lands, they plowed the fields, they got the seeds, they did all of that stuff. Because otherwise, Menyet would be sitting here and have nothing to read. I would be just sitting here trying to figure it out myself. So, ooh, I'm like, so, but are you going to send me a picture? Or are you just going to tease me that you got to see a rainbow and I didn't? That's the important question. So, just to kind of, I guess, finish up on that. And I'm like, clearly we are definitely gonna, oh my gosh. Yeah, I already see we're gonna be skipping a lot because in the next, it says how Kemet contributed to the birth of Greek philosophy. And then he literally goes through all of these philosophers saying what they taught when they were around and how it was related to Kemet, which is important. Yes. Oh, yay. I get a picture of a rainbow. All right, I'm done. My happy dance is finished. So I feel like maybe I won't fully skip it, but I'm just going to summarize it. But so I'm going to finish. We're on page 58. But to get to the question, because I didn't stop. I know I'm like, all over the place, but I'm coming back. I remember. So, Michael Tahuti, I like have to remember to say it how you have it written. Um, what is it that your spirit or your mind, what are you like hungry for right now as far as what information you are looking to get? Like, are you trying to figure out like the philosophy? Are you trying to figure out the application? Are you just trying to have like a deeper primary source foundation? Like, I guess where are you at? And then that will kind of dictate or lead what kind of, books you will go for. Yeah. And it's like it's good for us to, okay, so for everybody else, the comment is, I agree about the language they used back then, and we don't need or use those terms now. I think it's important that, we know what they are, because just like anybody else, once anybody's like, oh my god, I've got to read Shakespeare, or I have to read a presidential speech from 1894, like nobody wants to do that because they can't understand the language. So we still need to understand what those terms mean, and you know so that we understand what our elders and what our ancestors have left for us in the books that they've written. But I also think, like, that's the beautiful thing of education, that we need to kind of get the source information but also update it at the same time, and then disseminate it to, like, as the original, not the original, but the question that kind of got me off of reading anyway about homosexuality is like, okay, well, now what do we want it to look like? Let's start this conversation. Like, what are we going to do? So, like, it is important. It's very important that we know that the Greeks got their pretty much foundation in Kemet. Do we need to know all of the low down dirty details? Not really, because scholars already understand this. So who are the people who don't understand this? Are lay people, everyday regular people. So, but now again, and this is why I said I love Gen Z. They are so on it. Like, there will be times when I'm in class and I'll ask a question and they'll be like, yeah, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, where'd y'all learn that from? TikTok? And I'm like, yeah, I know. But then there's also a whole bunch of stuff they don't know. So it's this idea that they're learning things that it took us to learn when we were 20 and 30 and 40. So it's like, if we really are serious about this thing and we're trying to make a community and we're really trying to flesh this out, we do need to update the language. We do need to kind of update the content. We can't keep reading stuff from 1992, 1984, and that be the pinnacle. Like, I know the Ma'at book has come out. So that is a book that I was thinking of doing for, like, what is it? For like book club, but I'm like, that's like 2 months almost worth of reading, and people have jobs, like, you can't. That's a thick book. That's a real thick book. It's a good one, and I think the way it's made is very awesome, because it has literally all history. Then it has, like, Afrocentric stuff, and it's a nice mix, um, and it's well put together. But my critique is still this idea of, it's conflating some things for me. But I think, again, it's also worthy of the conversation. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize you wrote more stuff. Yes, looking for deeper primary sources. Okay, so me being born in the 60s, I understand a lot of the language the elders used. Okay, yeah. So, but it's kind of like, I understand using the language. I'm cool with that. Um, but I think the thing, I don't even quite know how to explain it, but it's like, people are teaching, like, as I said, there are some elders where they're using this language, they're using this, that, and the third. So we update the language, but then some of the concepts are even passe. Some of the concepts are, especially if, and I'm like, ooh, again, and yet it's about to be a jerk. Um, but when we watch these people on these online Debates. Because they're usually shouting matches. They're not debates. They're not true debates. Um, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But when we watch these people, they're espousing, generally speaking, mostly knowledge from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not necessarily, there are a few who are adding in like newer information and new layers, but it's just repeating the same thing over and over and over. And I'm like, that's not progress. Like, standing and shouting into the void isn't progress. So, like, well, what are we really doing? And as a Kemetic community, we need to start having that conversation of like, well, what are we really doing here? Because it's good that we want to liberate ourselves. Yay. We're liberating our mind. Yay. We're getting closer to the Netra and the Neteru. Yay. We got all of that, but what's it all for? What are we leaving? You know, because the ancestors in Kemet, they wrote it on walls. They wrote it on papyrus. They left directions, like how we read. I think that was last week. Let me see if I can find it. I'm like, watch me not find it now. Now that I'm actually looking for it. No, pardon me. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you remember. It says, they did it with complex organization. Oh no, that's not the right one. My bad, my bad, my bad. So sorry. No, I probably won't find it. I thought I could real quick, but this is something else. But it's the whole idea of like the whole reason why they wrote all these things down was to make life easier. It was the playbook, if you will. So what's the playbook, contemporary Kemetyw? We liberate ourselves, then what? We still live here. We still use Visa credit cards. We still like, okay, but now we just call ourselves Kemetyw. Like, so are we intellectually masturbating, or are we actually like, I'm being vulgar, but not at the same time. So, are we intellectually masturbating to satisfy our own ego, or are we going to be like a tomb and create with that energy? So if you know the story of a tomb, he ejaculated into his hand, and with that, therefore, you know, he brought forth life. So what are we doing? So, and I feel like I beat that horse like beyond recognition many times. So let me get off my soapbox. Um, so when you said looking into deeper primary sources, when you say deeper, I guess, Michael Jehudi, when you say deeper, that implies that you already are read. And I'm not meaning this to be condescending. This is my mental process. So when you're saying you want to go deeper with the primary sources, what primary sources do you already have? So I know what deeper means. Can you give me context for that? I think that would be my next. So like, you know, when it comes to beginners, and while I kind of wait for that to come up, so we've got, oh, I'm all hitting my printer. So we've got like the Husia over here. So that's like a super, I don't want to be mean, but that's like a super beginner um, book as far as the wisdom texts. And it's just kind of like a collection, but it's also like interpretation in the beginning. And if you go back in my is it my real, no, in my Instagram TV, we read the Husia, I want to say maybe almost 2 years ago now. So we read the Husia, and at the beginning of each section, so he pretty much just you know, has the English translations, but in the beginning he has explanations of each of the books and why they were written and who wrote them, and excuse me, and so on and so forth. So that would be a good one. And I know I mentioned that last week. Kemetic Proverbs, that's this one. So I have the Hermetica, and sometimes Especially in the beginning. Like I literally had 4 copies of the Hermetica. Why did I have 4 copies of that? I had 2 copies of Egyptian divinities. Why did I have I swear sometimes I just be buying books and then forget I have the books. But but when it comes to like putting it up to the next level, the Merriam Litcham books, those are like, because they go with each kingdom, they talk about the literature, they talk about the features of the literature, so on and so forth. Um, so technically, I am a sucker for Budge. Um, I know people don't like him because he's very antiquated in his explanation and his translations and stuff like that. But I'm still a sucker for Budge, at least in the beginning when it comes to like the mythology. So, the Gods of the Egyptians, Volume 1 and 2. Oh, this is the Purdom Haru, just the soft cover and the hardcover. Legends of Egyptian Gods, or Neteru, that's behind Bastet here. I'm trying to see. The Teachings of Ptah-Hotep, that's by, it says Hilliard Williams. Well, I know it's, yeah, Hilliard Williams and Demal. I'm a bad person. I don't know who the last person is. Don't tell. Da, da, da. Egyptian Philosophers. That's by Dr. Asante. The Ancient Egyptian Wisdom Texts. I forget who writes that one. But those are all like compilations of books. Ah, oh, see, look what happens when you just sit and you look at stuff. Um, so this is another Obenga book right here, this blue one. So this is African Philosophy, the Pharaonic Period. So same author, but this one is like way more detail. Life in Ancient Egypt, that's by Ehrman. I think that was a German writer. So that one's really cool, but that's more not necessarily wisdom texts, but the what do you call it? It's an Egyptology book, but it's really cool as far as understanding, everyday life, how they looked at stuff like that. Um, I really like. I'm looking for one specific book, but I don't see it. It's probably on the bottom shelf down there, but it's about it said, what is it, from fetish to God. I thought that one was pretty cool because it's talking about like the symbology and where the symbols come from, and like uh like why is the Apis bull, what does that mean, where does it come from, so on and so forth. um and like why it's culturally important, because they were originally herders. They had a lot of cows and cattle, and that was their livestock, so without it they would die. So it's very, very important for them to have that. So that one's a pretty dope one. That's, I think, a Budge book too. But as far as wisdom text, you can always go for the Faithful Coffin text, Pyramid text. They're really expensive. You can find some of them to download. But anytime you're reading wisdom text or even papyri, take your time, because I think that to me is like the best thing. And if you feel like you got to put it down, put it down. Put it down, come back to it. It's not like a super simple, easy read that you just sit and, oh, I've acquired all this knowledge, yay. Like, it takes time. Um, and then also we have to be mindful that pyramid text, coffin text, the Purdom Haru, like all of those things were funerary texts. So that's one of the reasons why I said like the Merriam Litcham is good, because it's other literature that's not just funerary literature. So yeah, that would be the main. Oh no, I lied. Here it is. From Fetish to God in Ancient Egypt in Budge. So that's that one. That's a good one. I really like that one. If you're gonna do Per M Haru, this is like, I have to say it because if I don't, I'm gonna get in trouble. So this is like the Faulkner version, and So this one is good because it has the papyri and stuff. So if you're want to practice or like, kind of see what everything looks like, you would, this would be a good one. But I'm not gonna lie, unpopular opinion, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble. I personally don't like the fact that it doesn't fit on my bookshelf. So totally shallow version of why. And then the other reason is I'm like, excuse me, bastards. Ugh. I'm like so afraid I'm gonna knock something down. Okay. So the reason why I like this one specifically, like this one's my, you can see I got some notes. But the reason why I like this one is the fact that he has the glyphs, he has the pronunciation, and he has the English. Whereas the other ones, it's like a disconnect. So it's like, especially when it comes to like prayer or like reciting things, if that's, a part of like, depending on what work you might be doing, you could at least, you have the, blah, blah, blah. I was like, is this manual decodage? Where is this? Oh no, okay, yeah, no. He has transliteration. So essentially you could sound it out. So just broadening knowledge in general. I'm laughing because the first thing, I'm like in teacher mode now. So my kids at work get annoyed with me because they be like, oh my god, you're always asking more questions. Like it gets to the point where they don't want to say stuff sometimes because they're like, you're just gonna ask me another question. But so backstory, we've been talking about in my finance class, we've been talking about making smart goals for ourselves, because if we don't make smart goals, specific, measurable, blah blah blah, we can waste and lose money. And time is the one asset we cannot get back. Therefore, what are we doing with our time? How can we effectively use our time so that we can maximize our income and, lessen expenses, so on and so forth. So the first thing, when I said I'm intermediate with my study, so I'm looking to broaden my knowledge, and I'm like, but specifically how? Because I'm thinking of the SMART goals. So that idea of, well, what do you want to learn? Because I think, and this is like, I remember I said last week, like, I have it where I'm like, okay, we got a 001. You only know what you know about Kemet from ancient Egypt from history class in school. Then we have blah, 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 like a 002, which is like, okay, let's get the why are we doing this as people of color, as Black people in the West? Why are we doing this? So I have some books that kind of cover that. Then the 101 kind of starts getting into other stuff. But once you get to a certain level, it's really about, like I said, what spirit is calling for, what your mind wants to know. So, like, one time I got really aggravated because everybody's like, Netert Shashat is all about weed and she's the patron of weed and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but make it make sense. Like, what do you mean? Like, it just didn't make any sense. So I just was like, I need the Eber's Papyrus. I need to know, because, that's what people will say. Oh, well, the Eber's Papyrus mentions cannabis. So the Kemetyw were potheads, so I can smoke and it's okay. And people will do stuff like that. And like, it just made me want to go in. So that's why all of this is to say, whatever direction you're going in or what you want to know. So like I have another book that's about economics and finance. I'm like, oh, that's it right there, the red book. So I'm like, that's another one, because I was, that was the wave that I was on. So depending on where you're going, you could get a whole bunch of different books. But I think that's the one interesting thing about being Kemetic in the 21st century, is that it's both good and bad. We have such a broad content knowledge, and certain people have specializations in certain areas. So it's really about like, what is your particular specialization? Like, because wisdom is wide and vast, and even after we pass away we still won't know it all, kind of a thing. So it's just kind of like, well, where are you going now, then later there, and we just kind of all go in a certain direction. I would like to see us, and I'm like, again, unpopular opinion, I would like to see some sort of uniformity for modern practitioners. So like, we all read this, we all read that. You could do more after a certain level, sure, go ahead, read whatever you want to read, study whatever you want to study, research whatever you want to research. But so many people's foundations are at so many different levels and different places that it kind of sometimes it makes it difficult. That's why, like, sometimes I struggle answering some questions because I really don't know different people's levels. So you're saying, like, I already have certain stuff, so I'm like, well, I'm not sure what to recommend because I don't know what you've already read, if that makes any sense. So Lord have mercy. Okay, so various aspects for MenyetAnkhEnMaat specifically. So what I have found, oh man, I'm like, now I feel like I'm gonna go a whole nother direction. So when it comes to such MenyetAnkhEnMaat, I generally, my teacher was taught under, I don't know why I just want to keep saying Ronnie Kemet in my brain. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember her name? I see her face. Oh, I'm like, let me see if I look on my shelf if I see her book real quick. No, where is it? Oh, why can't I remember her name? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm having such a brain fart right now. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, oh my god. I don't know why I can't. Thank you. Thank you, Ekurti. Thank you, Ekurti. Coming in clutch. I literally can only keep thinking Ronnie Kemet, Ronnie Kemet, Ronnie Kemet. I'm like, that's not even a name. Dr. Riketti Amen. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So pretty much most things, and I do like, that's why I was like, let me look for her book. She has conversational books. So like, just for me myself, I don't consider myself a linguist. Like, I have taken so many languages over the years and I can't speak any of them at all. I can understand, the best one I could do is Spanish, and I can hear it, but I have to respond in English. Like, I freeze up. I can't do it. So yeah, but for her books, she has like more books, conversational books. So I would definitely recommend that. She definitely has some classes. Um Seba Sinjeti, I'm like, what is his full name? Sinjeti. I know it's Ari Nefer. I'm like, is that why? Is that I'm like, this retrograde is doing something to my brain. Oh my god. Thank you. Maju Wefa is her conversational book. Again, Ekurti coming in clutch. Appreciate you. Naham says, I really appreciate you for that. Thank you. Sinjeti Ankh Ra. Thank you. Oh my god. I'm just left and right tonight right now. Um so he learned from under her. I know he always mentions, I'm like, I'm just gonna ask you, Kurtzy, what's the other gentleman that Seba always he always mentions, the other teacher, not Dr. Riketti, but the other gentleman. Um but yeah, so like, they do classes, and they've been doing classes, if I'm not mistaken, since the late 70s, teaching it. Or if you want to try to like teach yourself, they're conversational. Yeah, Dr. Bonacci. So that would be the other person. Um, and the only reason I say them specifically is because I know me, when it comes to learning, I know what kind of learner I am, and I know what kind of education, like, I say this all the time. I'm like, no, you got to talk to me like Sesame Street. I need you to explain it like Sesame Street. Like, I need you to legit teach me language like they used to teach Sesame, like on Sesame Street to little kids. Like, this is A, say A. I need some songs. I need worksheets. I need coloring paper. I need, because the way my brain is set up, I'm a visual learner. So I need to see it, and just rote memorization or writing it over and over again is not something that works for me. So, like, that's one project, or one of the 50 million projects I'm trying to do now, is I'm trying to make myself a workbook for that. So this way, I get to practice, but I'm like, well, I can't be the only one. So, like, that's something I want to do, but definitely taking a class. I do have other books on like how to teach yourself hieroglyphics. There is somebody on Instagram that I do like to follow, but that person is less active recently. Yeah, yeah, that's right. You would have to go through them through him to get to the higher levels with them. So yeah, and again, it's something about the language, like when it's English class, and it's like, oh, because the grammar of the doodly do, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't do it. It does not compute. So definitely something. There's like a million things I'm trying to do, but then 8 o'clock hits and I have to be in the school building, so I have enough time to get. I try to do as much as I can, a little at a time. So, and I appreciate you coming through and sticking with me, because whew, I really, really like this, my platform, and just not just sharing the knowledge, but creating that safe space to have these kinds of constructive conversations, not just teacher pupil per se, but we're all human beings, and at this rate, most of us are adults. So, I we need to have more realistic conversation. Otherwise, it's going to die with us. And, that's something, and this is like just personal, but it's like being a Kemetic woman and like converting to this, way of living and lifestyle and philosophy and all these things. Like, it totally saved my life from the direction that I was going. So I know the value of it. And when I see other people just like, oh, this is just book knowledge, like, it's so much more than that. So just kind of cultivating the space to really see what it looks like and talk to each other is so important to me. It's ridiculous. Ah, so I am definitely over time. I ran my mouth like beyond, but I appreciate y'all asking questions. I really actually would like to do more like Q&A, or just like more interactive conversations. But because I never know who's coming on, like, I can't necessarily structure it, so I just kind of read and talk, and whenever y'all say stuff, I say stuff. This is why it be taking us like 3 months to read a book sometimes. Oh yeah, it's so much deeper than book knowledge. But again, if you would listen to these debaters on the YouTubes, they try to really make it just seem like, I'm smart, you're dumb, because I read this book and you didn't, and I'm right because I'm weaving together this argument, and it's like, oh wow, like, that's really deep. Like, I don't know why we do that, but yeah, so much more than a book, and knowledge. Like, it is a total lifestyle. And oh, do I appreciate that. I really do. Because it just lets me know I'm not shouting into the void, and I'm okay with shouting into the void, but it's nice to hear a little bounce back and like, hey. So thank you for coming back, sticking with me, bearing with my corny jokes, and my mispronunciation of words. Today was just like, yeah, the YouTube debaters, they just, it's so cringe sometimes. And And the thing that's even more crazy, and I'm like, oh man, am I gonna get in trouble? Probably. Am I gonna say it anyway? Probably. Um, so many of the YouTube debaters are don't actually live the lifestyle. So like, and it's painfully obvious in just the execution. But besides that, it's like they're crazy misogynistic. They're crazy like I don't know. It's not even the phobic. It's the like. It's like it is such a pot of stuff over there. Like ego on parade. It's just so odd that and I get it. Because Kemet wasn't perfect. So, men had their place, women had their place, and sometimes it wasn't so equal. And depending on what time period you were in, it may or may not look a certain way. But yeah, like it's just a whole lot of American Western like trying to superimpose themselves on Kemet, and it's just like it's not right. That's not it. That's not the way it was done back then. It's not the way it should be done now. Like y'all are just out of my aunt, but YouTube makes money, and people like controversy and arguments. Yeah, it's straight as fat. It a lot of times the over there can be is fat. Depends on who you watch. There are some good ones. Hopefully me added in there. I'm done. Like plug myself. Um, but it's a diverse place because you got some people who are they are so, like, oh my gosh, you are so valuable because you do have this body of knowledge, but when you open your mouth, ooh, I don't want to listen to you. Like, oh my gosh, no, run away for the hills. And then you have other people who are just peddling very, very, very basic knowledge as though it's up, super, super high. And it just keeps us in this box, like we're really boxed in and limited because people think that's all there is. So and especially if you don't live in a place where there's like a temple or a shrine or a group or something like that, like whatever the internet has is what you think exists, and that's very, very sad. I try to be on the Ma'at side. I definitely try to be on the Ma'at side. Oh, yay. Yes, I definitely I would like to make it a little more, yes, teaching and learning, but I want it to be so again, because I am a high school teacher, and I know adults don't necessarily learn the same way as teenagers, like clearly, but I see the way the students learn and how engaged they are. And I would like to try to start adding that in there where we are much more engaged, where we're not just sitting and listening to somebody, but like, and I hate to make this comparison. If anybody, like, if there's anything y'all know about me, I hate making comparisons to Abrahamic anything. I really do. Like, it grinds my gears to no end. But it's a super easy example, and I'm not going to just leave it on the table, so I'm going to use it. But you know how like when people are in church, and if the pastor or the minister or whomever is saying stuff, and they be like, yes, and they just get up and they get involved. They really kind of take on what's being said, and they speak to, or like it's really engaging. And I'm like, I feel like that's really missing for us. Like we're very like, yes, and I read this book, and on page blah blah blah, like, okay, let your hair down, chill out, because we're all human beings. Like, you don't got to be like that. Nobody has it all together and is all straight laced. And not to say that you got to be wearing Tims and sagging your pants just to be relaxed. Like that doesn't, because I think that's the other side where they're cussing and using the n-word and doing all this other stuff that's like, that's not, that doesn't make it engaging. That just, people say, oh, it makes it relatable, and that's how I'm like, nah, you don't have to do that. Like, I say many flavorful, colorful things all day long. Like, y'all get a snippet of it, and it's like I don't need to cuss. Like if it's a way, like how I said earlier, there's just some things that it just needs that min energy, um then you know it is what it is. But you know, I just really would like us to have more engaging conversations. And because we also are trying to build a community, so if we're not engaged with each other, then you know what I mean, like then we just, oh, we read a book and we heard a lecture today, okay, bye bye, and that's it. Like we need it, relationships are important for community building, like so. But we need that, and we don't do that, and a lot of that I feel like comes from the Western American experience. But it's a work in progress. So Lord have mercy, why is it that I'm like, I keep getting phone calls like, stop, 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 stop. All right, so I think this is where I'm gonna cut it. I think I've talked y'all's ear off enough. I appreciate, I really, really, like, I cannot emphasize enough how much I appreciate y'all for just coming every week and like telling me like this is what you got wrong, or looking stuff up, or asking questions, and like that's just it is so Hetep. It's I love it. So I will see y'all next week, same place, same time. Um 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. And as usual, I'm a two Panatir. Sawek tu mente Panatir a udwa uma keti paheru. Give yourself to Nature Daily. Keep yourself to Nature Daily. And may tomorrow be as today. I'll see y'all next week. Shemiam Hetep.
Reflection of our ancestors. We like to thank you for the building blocks you left. This is your spirit.